Hi, welcome everybody to the Recovery from Relapse meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. It's the 4th of May, 2021. My name is Rita Q. I'm the moderator for the meeting. So I'd like to introduce our speaker today. She has been in OA for over 27 years and she's from Sherwood Park in Alberta, Canada. And I am delighted to present Brandee M. Take it away, Brandee.
Good morning. I don't know what it is where you guys are, but it's 7 a.m. here. So what a way to start my morning with you beautiful people. My name is Brandee. I'm a recovered compulsive overeater, food addict. So I definitely have a story of recovery from relapse, which I never ever thought that I would be here talking about recovery from relapse, because when you're in relapse, you never think you're going to get out. I never thought I was going to get out. I just kept trying and trying and trying, and I kept going back to the food. And, the idea of having permanent recovery was so far from my mind. I just could never fathom that. I would see people getting it, but I just couldn't. I was starting to think that I was terminally unique, or maybe, how they talk about the people who can't get it or constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And, I was incapable of being honest with myself. I was, in my mind, there was two things. There was a liar, which was my disease, and there was God, which, was trying to bring me back, but I was so blocked, right? But every now and then I would get those little things where, God would show up, but I was just so blocked off that at times I couldn't see it. So I'm just going to share my pictures with you. So this was me at the birthday party. This was like, look how happy I look. I was at the OA birthday party. This was probably maybe 3-4 years ago. And I was taking this picture because, again, I was at the birthday party. I'd met some fantastic people. I was going to, I was going to do it this time. This was going to be my time. So I was taking my before pictures. And one of my girlfriends was doing it for me that was with me. And, I would love to tell you that I left that birthday party and I recovered and here I am now, but that wasn't the story. I relapsed. I continued to relapse even harder. So that's the one picture. And then this was at my top weight. I was 350 pounds. Those are my two beautiful girls that are now, she's 18 and this one is 12, so they're much older now. But just living in the disease, trying to do my best. I remember this day specifically, we were trying to climb this mountain, and my daughter, this one, went up to the top because I couldn't get there because I was just morbidly obese and not able to enjoy that time with my family, because this disease robs us of life and life events. So that was my top weight. And this was right before I went to treatment in September of, I went September 12th, 2019. And so this is when I got back, which I'll share about. And then this was about, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, but this is what I do all the time is I meal prep. That's part of my recovery, is that I'm prepared. My abstinence has to come first in my life today. And so if that means that I take a day to fill my freezer of food so that I am never caught off guard, that's what I will do. That's willing to go to any lengths. So I continue to practice that today. So this is this is kind of on the halfway point. This was at the LA birthday party this year from my cabin because we couldn't go there. So down a pretty significant amount of weight. And then this one is closer to me today. So my top weight was 350 pounds and my weight today is 215. And so I've lost about 135 pounds, which I would love to tell you that that's like the biggest miracle, but it's not. It's not. My weight only means that I can wear nicer clothes. I can do more things. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I can do more. So I can, like physically, I can do pretty much everything that I want to do. But that's just a gift. It's the life that I have today that's the reason why I wake up, and I was up today at 6 a.m. with a sponsee on the phone before this. That's why I do that, is because of the life I have. So I just want to talk about what it was for me is, I was in these rooms for 26 years, just spinning my wheels and like looking for the answer, looking like for somebody to give me that, magic answer that, was going to help me recover from this disease. But not in those certain terms. I wanted it to be according to Brandee's will. Like I wanted you to tell me that I would still be able to eat certain foods. I wouldn't really have to, I could go to one or two meetings a week and I could leave those meetings and just, forget about the fact that I was in OA. I didn't want to, like, when people say, oh, like program is my life. No, thank you. That was not something I wanted. And I heard God mentioned a lot, but I didn't take that God was going to do this for me, that Brandee had to be shut down, that I had to change, not 180 degrees, but 360 degrees. Like I had to change. And so it was baffling to me of why I wasn't able to lose weight and why I wasn't able to stop, and the food meanwhile was continuing to kill me. Like I would get up in the morning and I would, I never like, oh, another thing I was not going to do is I was not going to weigh and measure my food, because only really sick people, compulsive overeaters, did that. So at 350 pounds, I didn't qualify for a very sick person. Like that was how honest I was with myself. And we would get these speakers that would come to share at our retreats, and they would talk about, how they weigh and measure, how they, use the big book, how they work their program. And I would leave and be like, I would just go back to the way I was doing things, because I wasn't ready to hear the message. Obviously, it wasn't that bad, and so I went through life. And when the big book talks about the tornado, I was definitely the tornado. I was a know-it-all. And, if you tried to give me advice or suggestions, I would probably tell you that I had better ways or better suggestions. I couldn't wait to talk. I was not a good listener. So if you were talking to me, I was thinking about what I was going to say, and I was barely listening to what you were telling me. I definitely was never present in the moment. I just, I had my own ideas. Like I was self-will run riot, and I was going to do anything and hurt anyone to get my way, even though my motives were good. My motives were like, I'm a nice person. I'm a good person. I would do something for you. But then I would definitely be building up that resentment in my mind, like, oh, then they should do this for me. And, and if you didn't live up, like, you would feel the wrath because I would tell you. And, so eventually people were starting not to want to be around me. And of course, it was all their fault. It wasn't mine. I was never accountable for anything. And that's the way I lived. And meanwhile, the food was more and more prevalent in my life. It progressively was getting worse. And I, you know, I remember going to the birthday party and I started hearing like a different message, because in my meetings, I didn't really hear a message where, like, to show me how to recover, to give me directions on how to recover. I never heard that before. And I started seeing these people at the birthday party where I was like, oh, they're like happy. What's happening here? And they're talking about like how they, have an allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. And, that was all new to me. Like, I didn't think of it that way. And they were in thin bodies, and that was very attractive to me. Like, they were thin, they were happy, they were, excited to be there. And, here I am, like, I traveled across the world to go to this birthday party to get abstinent. It was my another countless vain attempt, and because this was going to solve my problems. And what I know today is that human aid will never solve my problems. Going to a birthday party, going to a meeting is never going to get me recovered. It might put me in touch with the right people, and maybe, I'm ready for that miracle to happen, or I'm desperate enough for it to happen, and then I get it, but that wasn't my experience. And so I kept going to those birthday parties, and I've probably been to, I think, 4 now. And one of them, you know, the last one that I went to, no, the one before the last one, I was in relapse, because I was one of those people who would get like a week or two and then fall off, and then a week or two and fall off. Or, if I had a month, one time I even had a year, but that year I was doing 3 meals a day, nothing in between, but a lot of good living. That's what they told me in the rooms. And I was having chocolate bars for supper, because isn't that okay? Like, I was eating 3 meals. It was in the confines of my 3 meal. And I remember somebody telling me, as long as your meal has a beginning and an end. So I would start my meal. And for me, as a compulsive overeater, like, that's shit that's going to kill me. So I would start at, say, dinner time started at 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Start and an end. Whatever I ate in that time, right on. So I was abstinent, and I was going to meetings calling myself abstinent and sponsoring people. Great. So those are the kind of messages that I heard. And today I just know that those messages will kill me. I am a real compulsive overeater. The way that it describes, I'm the type 3 in the big book. I have the allergy of the body, the obsession of the mind. And when I start eating certain foods, the train gets on the track and it does not stop. Brandee is not stopping that. You are not stopping that. Nobody's stopping that. I had to have a power greater than myself to help me with this. And so I'm at this birthday party, traveled across the world, like, spent a lot of money to go. And, the Friday night, all I could think about was like, I need to eat. I need to eat. And I was one of those people who said, I will never, ever eat at a retreat. I used to hear people like how they would have stuff stashed in their room. And I would judge them. I'd be like, how could you go to something like this and then put shit in your room? Like, aren't you here to, like, that's how arrogant I was. And here I am, like, standing in a conference room of 800 compulsive overeaters at the back with my drug, chocolate in my purse, and like fill in my face. And while somebody stands next to me, and I'm hiding and I'm trying to make, I don't know if he knew or not, but I didn't care at that point. I was so addicted to food that I needed my drug, even with 800 compulsive overeaters around me, where I could have asked for help, but I needed my drug. I needed it. And that's how this disease was manifesting in my life. And so I went, to this, and then I went again the next year. And, I remember going, and that one was like so disappointing for me, because I went with all these people that were like recovered and getting it. And I was still the one that was fat, and I was still the one that was in the food. And, they loved me, but I felt so out of place. And that's like really the story of my life, is I've always felt out of place. I felt like I don't belong. Very young, my dad told me that, men would never love me if I was fat. My family always had an issue with the way I looked because I was an overweight kid. I was never accepted for who I was. It was always about my body. And so I learned that, you are not good enough if you are fat. And I carried that through my whole life. And so carrying that through my whole life, you can only imagine the relationships that I had with men, very dysfunctional because nobody was ever going to love me. My main role model confirmed that for me. And so, I was going about life, and it was so in May of 2018, we lost my mom, my dad's, or sorry, my, we lost a lot of people. We lost my husband's mom. And that was like really devastating because he was very close to her and we were all very close to her. And, it was a hard time. And I was abstinent at that time. I was imperfectly abstinent at that time. And I had been for 7 months. And so I was able to hang on by a thread, but none of my abstinence has never been neutrality. I've never had neutrality until my abstinence today. And so, we lose his mom, and then in July of that year, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And I went back to the food. At that time, I hit the food very hard and I couldn't stop. I had no trust and reliance in anything else besides myself. And my best thinking got me to where I was, so it wasn't great. Um, my husband had a very, very long treatment, like over almost 2 years of treatment, and through that time, I was not able to support him. I was in my own shit. I was in my disease. And even though I wanted to so bad, I wanted to be there for him. I wanted to like be his rock. And I couldn't. I couldn't because I was so sick in my compulsion. I was using food, I started using drugs, I started using alcohol, anything to numb out the way I was feeling because I can't handle uncomfortable feelings. The buildup of human emotion equals eat for a compulsive overeater. And those emotions were too big. They were too big for me. And so I started eating and eating more and going through the treatment. I was an asshole. Like, I'd be like, the guy's taking chemo and like, radiation. And I'd be like, really, do you have to sleep that much? You can't do a little more. Like, I was so insensitive. And all I could think about is myself because I'm a selfish, self centered person when I'm in my disease. And he, God bless him, he's still with me today. um, he's probably my biggest teacher today, and he probably sees my biggest changes today. And so we went through that, and his dad ended up dying in the middle of that. And then my mom got a cancer diagnosis in March of 2019. And that was when I finally, I broke. I couldn't do this anymore. I could not live the way I was living, but I didn't want to get better either because again, the feelings were big and so uncomfortable. And seeing like my mom was my best friend and seeing her, she got pancreatic cancer and that's a gross, gross death. And seeing her like that and seeing her in pain, I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't. And so the cookie jar was my best friend. Like I would go there to help her and I would sit there and I would just eat. I would eat because I couldn't see her like that. And and then I would go home and I would use drugs to just numb out and alcohol because I just couldn't do this. And I don't consider myself an alcoholic, but anything to get out of those feelings. And my mom passed away in August of that year. And I remember she could see that my weight was going up. She could see that I was in trouble. And my mom, like, her mission in her life was to make sure that I lost weight, because she thought that if I could just lose weight, that my problems would be solved. And so, God bless her, because she was just doing her best. She didn't have any other answers. And she could see how much my weight was tearing me apart, although it was really my head that was tearing me apart. And so, on her deathbed, she said to me, Brandee, you're not going to continue this, are you? And I said, no, Mom, like, I booked treatment. I booked treatment to go in September. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. And I wanted to be better in that time for her so that I could be present, but I just couldn't. And I couldn't put down the food. I would get up every morning and be like, please, God, please just help me, like, show up for my mom today. And I would binge and I would go to sleep. And all I wanted to do was be there for her. And this disease was just taking over my life. It was killing me. It was robbing me of my last moments with my best friend. And when my mom passed away, I did book treatment. And she's like, but don't eat until you go to treatment. And I was like, no, I won't. But I couldn't. I ate until the day before I left and the morning I was on the plane. And when I was sitting on the plane, I was like, what are you doing? Why are you going to treatment for food addiction? This is ridiculous. Here I am, almost 300 pounds again, because I had lost 50 pounds. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. You don't need treatment. Are you kidding me? I was dying. I needed help. But, I just thought it was a countless vain attempt again, like, because I just I did not believe that I could have recovery from this disease. And so I went to treatment and they made me put down all my alcoholic foods. And remember, I was never going to do that. I was always going to eat in moderation. Fuck, I can't eat in moderation. I can't eat chocolate in moderation. I can't eat cookies in moderation. I have the allergy. And so I put down the food there September 12th, and I've been abstinent ever since. And my abstinence is very black and white. It has to be. I cannot have sugar, fat, like saturated fat, flour. I don't do caffeine because it gives me anxiety. And, today I'm willing to go to any lengths when it comes to my food. I weigh and measure. I said I would never weigh and measure unless I got really bad. Well, I was really bad. And today I don't fool around with that. I commit my food that, the night before. Also said I would never commit my food. I do that. Those are the disciplines that I just need to do around my food to arrest my illness, and that's what they suggested I do. And so I listened because I was desperate and I was dying. So I had to listen to something other than my own head. I was not working. And in the big book where it talks about, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. I love the effect produced by food. It took me out of those emotions. It took me from being like up here, white knuckling or like so scared or so resentful or anything, like any emotion that I was feeling. And it just calmed me for about 7 seconds. And then I would need another hit, just like an alcoholic. And I could see that in my patterns of behavior. I was actually seeing it. And so I was believing that maybe that this book is actually about me and it could work for me. So I only stayed in treatment for about 12 days. I came home and I got a sponsor and I started working this program like my hair was on fire. I was telling my sponsor, okay, let's go. Because I knew I would only be able to hang on for so long. I had tried this before. And so, the fog was lifting because I put down all my alcoholic foods. The fog was lifting and I was seeing life in a different light. I never realized how those foods impacted my body, and so the food fog was gone and I was raw. I was so raw and I was in pain. I had a lot of human emotion that had built up. And so, I started working the steps with my sponsor and we went through really quickly. And, I I'm just looking at my next page. So, you know, I heeded the warning in the first 164 pages, but especially until we agnostic, because this is why I kept relapsing. Why I kept relapsing is because I was relying on my own power, you know, and I wasn't leaning into God. Today, I lean into God for everything. And if you call me and ask me something, I'm going to say, what does your higher power say? What does God say? Because I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'll pray with you. But God is the one who needs to do for me what I can't do for myself today. And I missed that for 26 years. I thought you were going to solve my problems. I thought you were going to make me better. I am beyond human aid. You know, no human power is going to relieve my obsession. But I wanted you to. I thought if I had a really good sponsor, then maybe I would be cured. No, I had awesome sponsors and I relapsed. So if you are seriously on page 25, if you are seriously alcoholic, which we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position that life was becoming impossible. We passed through the region, no return through human aid. Like, heed the warning. I had two alternatives. Go on to the bitter end. You heard parts of my life. You weren't living it with me. I bet you can imagine how great it was. So I could go on like that and probably live a life by myself because nobody wanted to be around me. Or I could accept spiritual help. Those are my only two alternatives. So what does accepting spiritual help look like? Fire Brandee, hire God. Brandee does not know. You know, my best thinking got me here. God's best thinking has brought me to a place beyond my wildest dreams. You know, relationships in my life today are so different. My husband and I were like on the verge of divorce. When I got back from treatment, like there was a pink cloud for a bit, but then you know what? My character defects started to show up again. And we were separated for a good 6 months. Today, I love my husband. I could never tell you that both my feet were in on my relationship, on any relationship in my life. God has brought me to a place that both feet are in. Like, I want to be with my husband. I could never say that before because I was always wanting the easier, softer way. I wanted to go where the grass might be greener. I wanted it to be easy. And this program is not easy. There's stuff we need to go through. You know, if I'm not going through pain, if I'm not working through my shit, I'm not growing. You know, I'm staying the same and I need to be growing. I need to be green. God wants me to be green and growing. That's where I am with God. And, you know, and so I accepted the spiritual help, although I didn't believe that maybe, you know, I didn't believe when I first started. Putting down the food is hard. It is hard. I'm not going to say it's not hard. It was hard for 3 months. I thought about food constantly. I had dreams about it all the time. I would wake up and be like, oh, I binged. Oh, shit. You know, it's not easy. And anyone that tells you it is, they're wrong, you know, or they're not a compulsive reader. Any compulsive reader that I know that's the real deal says it's hard, but it's not impossible. We can get through this with God and with our fellows. You know, we're all in this together. We do this program one day at a time together. And so, you know,
that's 5 minutes, Brandee.
Thank you. My relationship with my husband is better. You know, and in relapse, where it says most of the time we're unwilling to admit that we're a real alcoholic, I wanted to believe that I wasn't. And I tried everything to try and prove that I wasn't. I didn't want to be a compulsive overeater. I didn't want to not have control, you know, and today it's like I lack power. That's my problem. My problem is that I have no power over this disease. And what I've learned in recovery is that I have no power over everything. You know, those character defects that pop up, I'm powerless over them too. God has to remove them. I'm powerless over food and my life is unmanageable. You know, if I don't think I'm powerless, why would I accept these directions in this book? Why would I do it? You know, this book has a recipe of recovery. And if I follow the recipe exactly how it is laid out for me, I'm probably gonna recover, you know, but it's not just an instruction manual. I have to practice what it's saying. I can't expect I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna do the work and and that I'm just gonna be recovered. I actually have to practice what it's saying in my relationships. When character defects pop up, I need to do what it tells me to do. It's not just a theory. We have to live it, you know. And for the first time in my life, for the first time in program, I was so desperately beaten that I was willing to do it, you know. And today I really do have a life beyond my wildest dreams. When my mom was dying, I said to somebody, I said, I'm not going to have any family because nobody wanted to be around me anymore. You know, I had a sister who wanted nothing to do with me because I was an asshole to people, even though I was trying to be kind and like smiling as I was doing it. You know, I knew damn well. And today, me and my sister are like BFFs. Like, you know, about a month ago, we went skiing together. And that's a miracle in itself because I haven't skied since I was very young and because I was just too heavy. And we went skiing together and she said, Brand, she said, we're on the chairlift with her daughter and she said, you're skiing. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, Brand, we haven't skied since we were kids. And I'm like, I know. Like, she's like, I can't believe your life. Like, you know, the change. She's like, your life has changed completely. And I'm like, yeah, you know, and that's what the big book promises. It promises us that we're going to change, but everything had to change. My principles, my ideas, my personality. Like, I am not the same person sitting here today that started, you know, a year and a half ago, or I guess it's 19 months, but who's counting? And you know, I'm different. The way I show up for my kids, you know, I'm a mom. My kids are allowed to live their life today. They're not controlled by somebody who thinks they know everything. My kids have a higher power today. And so I don't need to control everything they do. I need to be here. I need to support them. I need to love them. I need to hug them. But I need to let them have their own life and let them fall and make mistakes. You know, I was so caught up in like, I didn't want them to have pain. I didn't want them to go through anything that I went through. If they need to go through that, that's not my choice today. That's God's choice. You know, I teach them right from wrong. I teach, you know, I try and do my best as a parent, but I seek God's will in that as well. Because I'm not a controller anymore. I'm not running the show. I have a new employer. Brandee's fired. God is hired, you know, and he performs my work well, you know, like he does. The biggest thing in my program today is helping others, you know. God, how can I be of service? I never wanted to sponsor before. When my phone would ring, I'd be like, oh, it's a program person. I don't want to answer. Today, I answer my phone, you know, because my job today is to help other people recover from this disease. I can't make you recover from this disease. I can't give it to you, but I can tell you about how this worked for me, you know, and that's all. That's what I do today. You know, I have my sponsees, they're sponsoring, we have a community of people. And today, this program is my life because I know that I don't have a life without this program. Everything else comes second to God today. And God wants me to be in these rooms carrying this message. You know, and even outside these rooms, I have lots of people in my life that are struggling, you know, and they see the changes and they ask. And, you know, I just do my best to show up. God, how would you have me be? What would you have me do in this situation? And sometimes, you know, I'm not always perfect at it. I'm not this perfect human being. I don't wake up every day like happy and want to do this. And when I don't, I just ask God, God, give me the willingness to show up today because I'm not really wanting to. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm human. And so I'm so grateful that you let me come and share with you today. And I'll put my number in the chat. I love outreach calls. And with that, I'll pass. Thanks.
Brandee, that was wonderful. Thank you so, so much.